Half Size Me, episode 692, brought to you by the amazing Half Size Me Academy. In order to join us, please go to halfsizeme.com/join. Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome back to another coaching episode. Today, I'm going to be coaching Diya, and this was a really good call because she was sharing how she feels like she has very little control, and she really wanted to work on seeing what things she could do to change her eating since she has been kind of stuck for the last, 4 or 5 months in the same weight range. So I think that this could be a really helpful episode for those of you who feel stuck. Maybe you had a lot of momentum, when you first started and everything felt like it was really clicking. And then all of a sudden you started to notice, oh, I'm kind of in this space where I can't seem to get out of. I think our call today could be very helpful for you. Before we get started on that, just want to let you know that if you could use some help with your meal planning skills, if you could use some help with making this a consistent habit, that is our focus in the HSM Academy this month. It's all about meal planning your way. I would highly encourage you to join us because I always say you can't improve upon a habit that does not exist. If your habits are not existing currently, then there's nothing you can improve on. You've got to have the roughest draft of those habits established. Even if they're not pretty to look at, even if you're not proud of everything that's on that meal plan, it doesn't matter. What matters most is that there is a meal plan. Then we can actually improve upon it. So if that is you and you could use some help, please feel free to join us. Go to halfsizeme.com/join. And again, I hope you really enjoyed this coaching call with Diya. All right, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Lovely listeners, today we have Miss Diya on the line with us. And Diya, I'd like for you just to say hello to everybody and then maybe share with us what's currently been going on for you that you need help with.
Hi. So I'm Diya, and I currently have been focusing on sort of creating a deficit. I think I've always been in this mindset of I want to lose weight. But listening to your podcast, I've been kind of maintaining my weight for a really long time. I've been very active. I've been very focused on my food intake, and not focused on my food, focused on my exercise and my food intake. But I realized recently, specifically the beginning of probably the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, that I was relying very heavily on exercise. And so I stopped working out as often, and I started trying to really focus in on what am I eating? What are my habits around food? And that's made a huge difference for me.
That's awesome.
And I think right now what I'm trying to do is find ways to stay focused, because I find that I start the weight management plan, for example, and then I'll have this problem arise and I'll be like, okay, I'll tackle that. And then I'll try to get back into it, and then something else will pop up. So I'm trying to make sure that the path that I'm going down makes sense and that I'm not just running around in a circle.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm glad you got that message, right? That if you really want weight loss to happen, it's got to start with the food. And you can exercise yourself to death, but there's a really good chance that if the food's not dialed in, your weight won't go down. So let's take a look at, you said you've been maintaining your weight really well. So how long have you been actively in this maintenance place? What would you say?
So because I've tracked off and on, it's usually around 3 to 4 months I'll track, and then I'll sort of let it go, and then I'll go back into it. In 2024, I pretty much was 190 to 194-ish. I'm usually within a 4 to 5 pound range. In 2023, I was about the same weight. I actually was working with a personal trainer who was giving me meal plans. And so I was working out 4 to 5 times a week. I was eating very strictly, and I had to make sure that I was doing things a certain way. And so that really helped me sort of understand what I needed. However, what I found was I started to feel very burnt out. So I would say actively maintaining for the last 2 years.
Gotcha. 2 years in this 190 to 194 range.
Yes.
Okay. And then what would you say the calorie average has been from, like you said, you usually will track for 3 to 4 months. So in that time period, what's an average calorie amount per month?
I would say the average calorie amount per month. I never tracked my monthly calories actually.
Oh,
I
okay.
usually only ever tracked my weekly and daily calories. So I never would take the time to average out what I was actually eating per month.
Gotcha. Okay. So just an FYI, a good starting place for you in figuring all this out would be go back and are you using Happy Scale for your weight?
I recently got back into using Happy Scale, but prior to 2023, I was very consistent with it and then I like stopped. I just didn't want to use the scale anymore. So I think that's been another piece of this is that I've done things and then I've stopped them because I didn't see what I wanted.
Yeah, and that's a very normal human response. And what it is we're kind of pushing and pushing for something, we're not seeing it, so then we get really frustrated and we back off. But what I would say is, if you were to start using Happy Scale now, and you look at say a month of your food, you should get a monthly average. So, what if you had to guess at this point? What do you think it probably is based on what you do in a week's worth of tracking?
So actually, I do have probably last month's because
Hmm.
what I started doing differently was averaging, or I started like calculating the weekly
Mhm.
average. And so what I found was for the month of January, it was anywhere between 14,000 a week to like 15,000 a week.
All right, so 14 to 15,000 a week, which would work out. Let me see here if I can grab my handy dandy calculator. If you
Uh,
did 14,000, that should be about 2,000 a day, right? Is that what you got?
yeah, and there were some weeks that were more 15, so like I can actually go back and find it now. I've been using it in my what is it? My paper pencil journal.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, last week, that was the first week of no. Last week on 2/9, my calorie average was 14,000 on 146. The week before that, um, my calories were 14,500.
Mhm.
Let's see. How do I get back to the January? Um, yeah. Okay. I have 2 more weeks data, but hold on. I think it's in Lose It.
Okay.
Um,
Well, and if these numbers are not fairly too far different from what you had in Lose It, then that gives me a good idea. You're falling somewhere between 2,000 and 2,100. Is that what you're
Yes,
kind of
that's
seeing?
exactly, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, yeah. If I
Okay.
look at the calories, that's usually where I go. And then if I go to like maintenance, although I don't really know quite, because I feel like with maintenance for me, if I go anywhere above 2,300, I start to notice my weight trending upward. But there are some times where I've had a 2,400 day and I've not gained any weight. But if I
Mhm.
have a 2,500 calorie day, like my calories are up for sure.
Yeah. And one of the things I want you to take away from this call today is that when we're looking at calories day to day, they're fairly insignificant. It's really what's going on for the whole month, okay? So, in a perfect world, if I'm coaching you, I would want every 2 weeks when I talk to you to be getting a 2-week average with seeing what's going on with your weight. Now, at the beginning of January, what was your weight then, and then what was at the beginning of February?
Okay, if I look at my weight in January, my like the low weigh in, is that what it is?
It could no, usually I look in the logbook under average, your average
Oh,
weight. Mhm,
logbook,
mhm.
and then the moving average.
Yep.
And then okay, so for January, my moving average was uh 204.3 to 203.7.
Okay. Now your moving average on January 1st, what was it then?
Oh, I wasn't weighing myself consistently in January. So the first time I weighed myself was January 6th and I was at 203.7.
Gotcha. Okay, on the 6th. And then what is your average weight as of today?
205.2.
205.2. So here's what I would tell you. First step, I want you to go back through your food logs. Go from January 6th to today, like what is today? February 27th, 2nd. I would take all of that data and I would add it together and divide by the amount of days. And I would call that your average. That would be your maintenance average. Does that sound
So,
fair?
so you're saying all the days that I tracked between the 6th of January and today, if I add all those calorie amounts up and then divide it by that number of days, that would be my maintenance?
Yeah,
Or
because
okay.
what you said was on the 6th, you were like 204.3, and then today you're 205.2. That's pretty much maintenance right there, right? So
Oh, okay.
you've already got the data, you just haven't calculated the data yet. Now, have you been a diligent tracker this whole time? Like, you don't skip days when they're a little bit off or high or anything like that?
No, I haven't been diligent. This month I've been diligent, but last month I mentally wasn't in the place. And so that's where I was talking about, like, I would start something, I would do it well, and then like I'd get discouraged or something would
Sure.
happen. And so then in the HSM community, I would start doing like the what is it, the manage your mind to lose weight. And then
Yeah.
watching those videos would kind of help focus me, and then I'd get back into the tracking, and then I'd get kind of thrown off again. So I feel like for the last year, a pattern that I've realized with myself is that I have a really hard time staying focused on the goal. And I recently was diagnosed with ADHD. I don't know if it really makes a difference, but like listening to you talk, I know that a part of it is just habits as well. And I think that's been a really hard thing for me. And so I really want to know, like, am I going crazy? Like, do I just keep doing what I'm doing? Like, how do I really stay in the zone or just make it a priority? Because I feel like that's where I'm struggling a lot.
Well, I personally think what you could do to better help yourself figure this out is actually achieve a calorie deficit and see if it's something you want to stick with. Okay. So it sounds like up till now, it's been like random starts and stops at this. And it sounds like it's not really been well thought out, like a well thought out plan of action. And
Hmm.
that's what I want to help devise with you today. And then let's say we get you into a calorie deficit and you notice over the course of a month you've lost 2 pounds. Well, you get to make the decision. Is this worth it to me? Like, do I want to keep going forward and eating this way and losing more weight? Or would I rather focus on exercise and keep my weight stable? Like, you get to make that decision. But right now, it sounds like you're missing some key pieces of information. One, having so much solid tracking that you can definitively say my maintenance calories are X.
Okay.
And then saying if I want to be in a deficit, that means I need to be eating at Y. And this is how I do it. And when you have those components, you get to then make an educated decision on what you want to do.
I guess the thought of that is scary.
Yeah. So what part scares you?
The idea that I have that much control over it makes me feel like all the attempts I've done before were not really me trying. It was just me saying I was going to try, but not actually putting in the work to like change my life.
Mhm.
I've done the whole like lose weight, gain, lose weight, gain, lose weight, gain. And like I just turned 30 last year and I was like, man, like I cannot live like this. Like I'm just tired of it. And so this year for me has been really powerful because I realized that I don't want to do that and I really want to hone in, and I just feel like scared. It's like, man, like can I actually do it this time? Can I really hold myself to this place and like be where I want to be?
Yeah. Well, and here's the way you know that. So right now, you're lacking knowledge and information to make that decision. But what I want to do is help get you the information and knowledge to definitively say, this is worth it for me to pursue and I want to pursue it and I know what needs to go into this. But I think you coming to that realization that you've been spinning your wheels, and here's a different way to think about it. How long would you say you've been actively working on this?
God, probably I would say like seriously since like COVID, like 2020, I found your podcast and I was like, I finally admitted that I had a binge eating problem. Like my binging was out of control. And I took the woman who made the book, what is it? Binge, Catherine
Catherine
Hansen.
Hansen. Hmm.
She had like a small group, and I did a small group with her, and that really changed my perspective on, you know, just the noise. Stop. Like just
Hmm.
it's bad information, and I
Hmm.
really stopped binging. Like I don't find myself binging at the way that I used to. I just don't do it. What I do though is I emotionally eat consistently, and it always throws me off. It just always
Hmm.
throws me off. So I think I would say, yeah, since 2020, I've really been trying to get to a place where I'm comfortable in my body and
Hmm.
I feel like I can exercise and move freely without feeling extra weight on my body.
Yeah. And here's what I want to help you see. For 5 years, you've been working on binge eating, which is not related to weight loss per se. It's about getting your binge eating under control. It allows you to have the ability to lose weight by getting it under control, but it in of itself isn't. But if I take that 5 years, that's about 17% of your life that you've been working on this. And what I would love to help you do is reduce the amount of time you're going to have to invest in this by just getting the answers you need. And what you can do is say, okay, I've maybe been going at this without a direct, clear path, like a clear plan, but now I have that clear plan. And Heather's going to check in with me through the HSM Academy, and we're going to figure this part out together. And then it's my decision. It's my decision where I choose to take it. I have no judgment on you if you choose not to lose weight or if you choose to lose weight, but I just want you to have the knowledge to know what's required. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that's really where I've been stuck is that I hear what you're saying and I know what you're saying, but for whatever reason, it's been really hard to consistently figure out for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So how many days and or weeks do you have of what I would call solid tracking where everything's been tracked, including overindulgences, impulse eating, all that?
The beginning of this month, probably the last week of January till now, I've been
Okay.
tracking every day.
All right. So you would say the week of January 28th on?
Yes.
Okay. So let me take a look at my calendar here just to get an idea. So if I go from or actually, I'm sorry, the 27th was a Monday. So let's say we go 27th. So we got 1, 2, 3. So next Monday should be 4 weeks. Is that what you're seeing for yourself?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what your step number 1 homework assignment is. Okay. Number 1, I want you to take the calories from January the 27th to Monday, February the 24th. And I want you to get me an average on those calories. Okay.
And when you say an average, you're specifically referring to um, totaling them for the week and then dividing that by 7.
So when I say that whole time period, you remember those numbers you gave me, the 14,146, the 14,500, all
Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
numbers? I want you to take them for each of those weeks, add them collectively into one big number, and then divide by the number of days, or if they're all solid weeks, then by 4 solid weeks, which would be 28 days, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to get me a daily average. So kind of how if I take 14,146 and I divide it by 7, I get a daily average just for that 7-day time period. I want one for the full 28 days.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, once you get that number based on what your weight has done, and what was your average weight on uh, February 1st, just out of curiosity?
February what?
1st.
February 1st, 206.8.
Okay. So you've pretty much hung out in this 204 to 206 range, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
My weight went up. I stopped going to the gym at some point in 2024, like the end of 2024, because I was starting to get like very burnt out from the gym. And so since I stopped going to the gym, my weight has crept up to the 200s. But when I was going to the gym, I noticed that I would stay in the 190s. So it made me very, aware that the food was really where my problems were
Yeah.
lying.
Yeah. So once we get this average number, and I'm just going to use pretend numbers for right now, just so we can have a something to work off of. But
Okay.
let's say that you find it's 2,000, right?
Okay.
2,000 average calories from January 27th to February 24th. Your next homework assignment is to go through 2 weeks of your food journals, and I want you to say, if I had to do this whole day over again, but I had to take out 200 to 250 calories, what would I trim out? Now, your
Mhm.
first initial response might be to take out a treat or to take out something you enjoy. I would encourage you not to look there first. I would actually go through your meals and say, all right, at breakfast, could I maybe swap out my coffee creamer? Or could I maybe have one piece of toast instead of two? Or maybe at lunch, you say, okay, could I take the dressing I'm using and could I mix in some lighter dressing that might cut some calories, or not put cheese on my salad, or little things that add up to 50 calories here, 80 calories there, that kind of a thing. And the thing I want you to look for, and you might want to write this down, I want you to look and see if portions can be changed. So can I reduce the portions of certain foods? Maybe I eat rice with this dinner, but I'm actually okay with a little less rice because it's not my most favoriteest thing. I could cut out a half a cup of rice, save 100 calories right there. I want you to look at portions. I want you to look at food swaps. So, for example, if you're using bread that's 100 calories a slice, could you look to swapping it to bread that's 80 calories or 50 calories a slice? Could you make that change? So, food swaps, portions, and looking for ways to bulk up meals with things like your vegetables and stuff like that, which would maybe reduce the calories but add volume. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And all we're looking for each day, it's called a food audit, by the way, if you want to write that down. This is a food audit you're going to do. You're going to do this for each day for just 2 weeks. You're going to go through 2 weeks of food logs. What would I have cut out today, keeping everything the same, to reduce my calories by 200? What you're going to do is create a list for me of either things you could reduce portions of, things that you could swap out for something else, okay? Things you might be willing to let go of because they're not that exciting to you, but you just eat them because you think you should, or foods you could bulk up with vegetables and decrease some of the portions of the more heavy calorie items, okay?
Um, when you say portion control, I tried doing the small plate thing and it worked for a little bit. But I found myself being very hungry. And so I was like, I don't know, like if this is for me. So I kind of like abandoned it a little bit.
Mhm.
Would that potentially be a place to start again for like, because I eat lunch at work. So that for me is already pretty portioned out because I put them in small plastic containers like those meal prep bowls. But for
Mhm.
dinner, it's like I have a large plate, so I can kind of just like fill it up, you know?
Actually, that would be a great place to do what I'm talking about bulking meals up with vegetables. So, for example, if you notice you like to have like some kind of chicken and rice and something like that, maybe
Hmm.
cutting way back on the rice and really increasing the vegetable content. So you can still use the same plate, but you're basically taking up more real estate with vegetables. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I wouldn't worry about changing plates or anything. Again, I want you to hear me on this because I know it's easy to kind of like make it bigger than it is. We're literally going to take 2 weeks of your current eating, the way you eat,
Okay.
and all you're going to do is go through each day and say, if I had to redo this whole day again with the knowledge I need to shave 200 calories out, where would I pull that 200 calories from? What could I take out of breakfast? What could I take out of lunch? What could I take out of dinner? What could I change with my snacks that would make it to where I could shave 200 calories out of today?
Okay.
Is
And
that
when I do the food audit, I'm doing it day to day, right?
for 2 weeks? Yep.
For 2 weeks. And then when I look at, so let's say that I do this food audit and I find places that I can take out food. Am I then using that as a way to then plan my next 2 weeks?
Yeah. So if you want to take a kind of a lazy approach to it, you could just repeat that 2 weeks with your modifications. Because obviously it's food you like, right? Because you're already eating it. So
Yeah.
instead of having to reinvent the wheel, you could just go back and say, all right, let's do this 14 days all over again. and let me just make these modifications and shave out this 200 calories and see if that moves me into a deficit. Because see, where our mind goes a little wonky is all of a sudden then we're like, oh, I got to go look up a bunch of low calorie recipes and I got to go do this. And I go, no, take what you got, repurpose it, and then just redo those 2 weeks, but just with 200 less calories, right? And it can be simple stuff. Like it can just be, like I said, less cheese on your sandwich. Like it could be a lower calorie cheese on your sandwich. You can make it so incredibly simple that you don't have to do it all. You don't have to create anything.
You know, it's so funny that you said that, because I immediately was like, okay, well, now I got to go on Pinterest and like make these recipes and find these Instagram recipes. And it's so interesting that you say that, because I'm like, oh, you're right. Like I have been eating food lately that I really enjoy. And so the idea that like I can just redo it is like very weird.
Yes. And then what this is all going to tell us, because you're going to send me a chat message through the Academy. All right. So I'm going to write this down. I want a chat message from you on February the 25th with the average calories for the month. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing you're going to do is the food audit. And I'd like you to send me another chat message. Now, how many days do you think it's going to take for you to go through 2 weeks of food logs?
Probably because you want me to send you the message on the 25th of the average food, right?
Calories. Average calories.
Food. Oh, average calories. And then from there, you want me to do a 2-week food audit. So is that literally just me like, so usually when I plan my foods, I do it like the morning of. If I give you the food audit, am I just giving you the new version of my 2-week, or should I give you the things that I feel like I could swap?
That's it. So I'm gonna tell you exactly what I'd want to see if I watched you do this. You'd have a notepad in front of you or a Google Doc. Okay. And you would go day by day and you would just write down and you can even break it down into changing portions, swapping products, bulking up with vegetables. Like I want you to make notes for each of the respective days that you go through. Now, if you're eating similar food day to day, you may find you're repeating the exact same thing all over again. So once you've listed it once, you don't have to keep listening it over and over and over again. Like if you say, oh, I have a yogurt every morning for breakfast and I would just not put nuts on my yogurt to save, 80 calories. Well, then you don't have to do it for 7 days in a row. You just write it one time. Okay.
Okay.
So the food audit, if you're going to send that to me via chat, do you think by Friday the 28th you could have that done?
Yes, I could. Yeah. Another thing that I have is like, I keep thinking about like you were saying, don't take out the snack treat situation. And I think I just listened to an episode where you're giving someone advice where you said you should know how much of calories you're eating of snacks and then plan your meal around that. And that was pretty cool, because I was like, oh, like I've always just planned my meals and then the snacks like kind of will like impulsively come up sometimes.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I have a pretty good, solid idea of the amount of snacks and treats that I eat every day. And so when I'm making these swaps and bulking, should I also keep that in mind that like I'm going to keep that snack treat amount the same? Like I don't want to touch it. I'm just focusing on the meals around it.
For right now, if you get all that looked at and there's not enough to do 200 calories worth, then what I would do is maybe put a cap on the treats where maybe you're looking at 20% of your calories. So if you say 2000's maintenance and say we're shooting for 1800 for a deficit, 20% of 1800 would be 360 calories, right? So if you can't pull the calories out of the meals and the snacks by making small adjustments, then we may want to look at capping your treat category, just so that way you've got a number you're aiming for, but it keeps you in a proximity to where you can actually get into a calorie deficit.
Okay. And then a second thing to that is I have one treat that I've been doing that half isn't a treat. So I really had a craving for carrot cake. So I was listening to one of the coaching series. It wasn't the Carolina, it was Sarah. And you were telling her like to plan chips every day. And so I was ignoring this carrot cake craving and I started planning it in. But what I realized was like eating a whole slice of carrot cake was just too much. So I started cutting it into fourths. But then I would like stack it on top of this like protein carrot cake that I made. Because what I found was I would eat the fourth of a carrot cake, but I still wanted more. So then I like created like a healthier version of it that was like, it had yogurt, it had like less everything. But I've been categorizing that whole treat as my treat because it's a fourth of carrot cake. And then it's also like this, what I would consider like a protein carrot cake combined.
Yeah, and you could keep that, but what you might realize is maybe, if, and again, I don't know until you do the audit, but if you can pull the 200 calories out of everything else, that could just stay the same. If not, what you might do is say, okay, could I get by with half the serving of the protein carrot cake and the quarter of the regular carrot cake? Or maybe you've had enough of the regular carrot cake and you're fine with just the protein carrot cake. I don't know. But that could be an area that if you have to make a slight modification, but I'd rather you focus on all the other areas first.
Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking about that only because I know like that has specifically been a huge issue for me in the past is like my snacks versus treats and how that adds calories to or like how that takes up a lot of space in my day. So I'm going to go back and look at my meals, especially with portions, to just see if I can take out little things. But immediately my mind is like, no, like my treats are like right now in my mind, I'm thinking like, I have a feeling that my snacks and treats are going to be like they're not currently 20% of what I eat. Like it's more than 20%. So I feel like it could be something that I know for a fact that it's going to be something that I'm going to have to look into because I feel like the last couple of weeks, my meals have been pretty well portioned out. Yeah. So I'm just thinking to myself, just off the bat, I'm like, it's going to be pretty tough to take things out of my meals that feel already sparse if I have this large snack treat limit.
Right. And well, until you get in there, you don't know, to be fair. So I would encourage you to do that first. And then secondly, if you can create a calorie deficit in maybe different ways, then I would say if it just to get the ball rolling, I'd rather see you do that to get some weight loss moving in the right direction. And then you get to make that decision because at some point you may feel differently about it. But right now it's about really you need clarity and you need information because you're lacking both of those. Okay. Once you have clarity and you have information, then you are an informed person who can make a decision based not on fear and scared and uncertainty, but on, this is my maintenance calories and this is what I need to do to lose weight. And I now have done the food audit. So I know what my options are. What do I want to do about that? You don't have to do anything. You can just keep doing what you're doing. But if you go, no, I really, really want to lose weight, then you might say, all right, I'm willing to cut some of this down a little bit just to make that 200 calories happen. And you might just do it for 2 weeks just to try it out and see what happens.
Okay. Yeah.
Sound fair?
Just to try it out and see what happens. Yeah.
Everything is a science experiment. You're just trying stuff out to see what works. And if you don't like it, you don't ever have to do it again because you're grown up. You don't have to do things you don't want to do.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So you're going to email me information on the 24th and the 25th and the 28th. Yes.
Yeah. 25th. And then the 28th about the food audit. Yeah.
Yes. High five. Was this helpful for you today?
Yes, it was very helpful. Thank you.
All right, my dear. You have a great rest of your day. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to visit halfsizeme.com. Check back often for your daily dose of inspiration because you are worth it.
The information you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The host is not a medical professional. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.